Nothing that you and I want is going to come and find us. We're going to have to take some action. And I was reminded of this when I got a message from a guy who was worried about losing his kids. Hey, you, how's it going? How are you? It's AD Roundtree. Welcome to this, your Monday edition of the show. Yes, your Monday. Your new day of your new week, your clean slate, your fresh start, a chance for you and I to move forward together into whatever it is that happens next, a chance for you to kick an entirely new week directly where it counts. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. And if you need something, if there's anything I can do for you to make your Monday better, if you need to talk, hit me up. At ADSXE is where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ADSXE. Put it in your phone now in case you need it later. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. And yeah, Monday is a good day to remind ourselves that the things that you and I want are not going to come to us. I think one of the worst pieces of advice I ever got, a piece of advice it took me years to undo, was a piece of advice from someone who said, you know, you're working so hard trying to get these things that you want. You got to remember, flowers don't run around chasing after bees. No, they let the bees come to them. And I can't remember exactly who gave me that piece of advice, but I really wish I hadn't listened, because there was a period of time, probably in my late teens and early 20s, when my professional life had already begun, where I sort of took that to heart. I kind of felt like, all right, I'm talented and smart enough that the world should recognize that, and, well, that's going to help me get where I want to be. Wrong. Did not happen. And I'd already begun my professional life. When I was just a teenager, I was in this band. I somehow managed to get myself into a spot where this screaming punk rock band I was in got a record deal. And I remember I had a scholarship to go to New England Conservatory of Music and Tufts University. I'd done pretty well on those, what do you call them? I'd won a national merit scholarship with my SAT scores. And, well, I'd gotten a pretty significant part of my ride to a further education paid for because of it, which was cool. But I discovered when I was late into my high school years that if you offer a kid a choice between a dorm room and a tour bus, that kid will take a tour bus every single time. So somehow this band I was in got a record deal. And I guess, you know, there was an expression at the time. You don't want to be a try-hard. There was sort of a sense at that moment in rock history that if you were trying too hard, it wasn't cool. And I kind of was suckered into that a little bit. Cut to, years later, realizing anyone that got anywhere was working incredibly hard behind the scenes and maybe doing everything possible to make it look like they weren't. But there was a time where there was this kind of slacker mentality, this mentality that if you were talented enough, the world would come to you. And I kind of bought into that for a second, which was a huge, huge mistake. And I only started to undo that when, well, I had some survival that depended upon it. It was interesting. As quickly as any kind of success can come in the music business, it can go just as fast. I went from being a guy in a band who had gotten $1 million record deal, who had toured the world, who had a tour manager and a tour bus and a credit card at an age when a teenager should not have a credit card, to not that long afterwards delivering a pizza to the studio where I'd recorded my album. Yeah, it was not an awesome feeling. I was the subject of a bidding war. Record labels were competing with their checkbooks for my affection, and, well, that came to an end reasonably quickly. I think part of the reason it came to an end, I mean, first and foremost, there was a corporate merger, but I think part of the reason it came to an end was because I kind of bought into that idea that if I was just talented enough, the world would come and find me. All the stuff that I wanted in life would be attracted into my life. And, you know, there's those people that say you kind of manifest things, you write things down and they just come to you. And, well, I don't buy into that. I believe that you, me, all of us, if we have anything we want in our lives, we are going to have to take some action. We're going to have to get after it in some way, shape, or form. And the people that believe in manifesting things, the people that are, putting stuff down on their vision board, I think a big part of what they're doing as they read the book The Secret again is they're putting things at the front of their mind, so they're almost forced to take action. And, well, I thought about this a little bit when I got a message from a guy called Steven, who was someone that's been listening to the podcast for a while, since I started out a couple of weeks ago. And he said he appreciated the podcast, which was great. I mean, I started this podcast because I had a need. I needed to keep the connection that we have had for the last 17 years with me being on the radio going. I had to keep our conversations going. I had to do that for my own sense of sanity and a sense of connection while I was dealing with some really gnarly stuff in a foreign country. If you're just listening to the podcast for the first time now, I started it while I was in Kosovo in my father's hospital room. He had a medical emergency that made me go halfway around the world. It was one of the more harrowing experiences of my life. And, well, I started doing this podcast to keep the connection that I'd built with people that listened to me on the radio for the last 17 years, because those conversations, those were getting me through. And so I started this podcast to talk about the things that were going on in your life. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a counselor. In no way, shape, or form am I qualified to dispense advice on anything. But I do know that when you talk things out, when you say things out loud, when you hear things about your situation said out loud, well, a lot of the time they become a little easier to understand. So that's what we're doing. We're talking about the things on your mind, the things in your life, the things that you've got going on, the trials, the obstacles that you are encountering. And I'll share some of mine along the way. We'll have some laughs and we'll get through them. But I got a message from Steven who said, "Hey man, I've been binge listening to your podcast the past couple of days. I wanted to say thank you. You continue to help me realize how fragile life is. Thank you for everything. And I really do hope you keep these going." And I was really flattered. Thought that was really cool. And thank you, Steven, if you're listening. I was like, what do you have going on? Anything you want to talk about? And he said, "I'd like to keep hearing the motivation. My ex-wife is trying to move my kids over 200 miles away against a court order, and I don't really have the resources to afford an attorney to fight it. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. This all hit me right after Christmas. I don't want to lose my kids. And Stephen, I am so sorry." And like I said, I'm not qualified to dispense advice. I'm really not, especially when it comes to complex legal issues that vary state to state, sometimes county to county when it comes to family law. I certainly can't speak to the legality of your situation, Stephen, but I can tell you the best thing I have ever done in situations that seem impossible, the best thing I think you can do in a situation that seems impossible, insurmountable, keep going. Like I said, the things that we want in life are not going to come to us. We have to take action. I think no matter what the situation is, and this is a time of year where a lot of people are focusing on goals, things that they want to do, things they want to be, things you're trying to earn, learn, achieve, accomplish, or become. It's something we tend to do around the beginning of the year. And I know none of that stuff, whether it's dealing with a complex situation with your kids and your ex-wife and wanting to stay in their lives, to wanting to drop a couple pounds and be ripped and toned by the time the summer rolls around. None of this stuff is going to happen unless you and I take some action. So every day, Stephen, and anyone else that's dealing with something that seems impossible, every day, you just keep pushing, putting one foot in front of the other, trying to do the next right thing. Maybe it's making a call to a social worker or a lawyer. Maybe it's reaching out to your kid's mom and trying to come to some kind of agreement. If she shuts you down, maybe it's being persistent. But you gotta keep pushing. I know that you're not the type of person, I could just tell from the messages you sent me, Stephen. I know you're not the type of person that would be satisfied or feel okay not being a part of your children's lives. And in years to come, maybe they don't think about it now, but in years to come, your children will recognize that you're trying to be a part of their life. Your children will recognize that you care. Your children will recognize that you are pushing to be their father in an active, engaged way. Your children will recognize that you are doing everything you can to be present in their lives, if you do everything you can to be present in their lives. Like I said, the important things in these tough situations is that you do something, to take some kind of action every day to chip away at the situation. Eventually, something will shake loose, no matter what the goal is, whether you're trying to be a part of your kid's life like Stephen is, and you're facing a difficult situation like their mother trying to move them hundreds of miles away against a court order. Whatever the situation is, nothing is going to happen if you do nothing. But if you keep pushing, taking action every day, chipping away at the situation, eventually, like I said, something will shake loose. Some kind of progress will happen. Some kind of solution will start to take shape and evidence itself as long as you keep taking that action. A lot of the time, you can get frustrated. You can feel like you're going absolutely nowhere. But any action, any step you take brings you closer to your goal. In this case, Stephen, closer to your goal of staying in your kids' lives. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. And I wish I could take some of that struggle and the hurt it causes away. But I can tell you that taking a step or even a small little nudge of yourself forward, in my experience, that's so important. You got to keep on pushing. When I stopped being in a band, I needed to keep on pushing. I'll never forget. I was in my early 20s. I'd been in this band for like 7 years since I was a teenager. We'd done a lot. We'd had a lot of fun. We'd made records. We'd had 3 major label record deals. We'd been around the world. We'd sold some records. We'd played to some audiences. And man, we had a blast. But at the end of it, when all my friends were graduating, getting out of college, had new cars, new jobs, apartments, places that they could afford to live, I had nothing. Zip, zing, nada. I had a resume that said lead singer of a band. And I didn't even have a band anymore. I wasn't in a good situation. I wasn't in a good position. I had to figure something out, though. And, well, I did. What I figured out was radio. And radio seemed like an impossible proposition. I wanted to be on the air. I remember somebody telling me, hey, you got to figure out what your gift is, what you got to give the world. What's your gift? What makes you special? What makes you stand out? I remember making the decision. My gift is my voice. I've been the lead singer of a band for a really long time. The words that I wrote, the songs that I sang, got me a record deal a few different times. They moved people to the point where they bought those records. They came to those shows. They paid for me to live. I had a livelihood because of my voice. And I started DJing to make a crust. That was how I was kind of getting through. Anywhere in New York City where I was living that you could set up and play some records and get paid for it, I would do. Everything from swanky clubs and lounges to weddings and bar mitzvahs. And I remember I was DJing at this bar and they asked me to announce the specials, Thirsty Thursdays and whatnot. And somebody said to me, man, you've got a great voice. You should be on the radio. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's it. That's what I have to offer. Whether I'm singing, whether I'm writing, whether it's the written word, whether it's me talking. I think my gift if I have one, if I have anything going for me in this world, it's my voice. It's what's helped me make a living thus far. It's gotten me to this point. And if I'm going to continue, it's going to be with my voice. So I decided I was going to be on the radio. Not an easy thing to pull off because generally speaking, you get onto the radio by, getting an internship, being behind the scenes, and sort of waiting for someone to get sick, get fired, or retire to get your shot at being on the air. I was exactly nowhere. I knew no one at radio stations. I wasn't offered a job. I didn't have anything going for me whatsoever. I knew some people in radio, in media, in advertising that said, you might get a job handing out koozies on the street outside Verizon's. You might work in promotions. You might be able to get yourself some sort of job in production because you know how to use digital editing software. But the one thing that is not going to happen is you being on the air. No one is going to give you a job of being on the radio. It's just not going to be a thing. You don't have any experience. You've got zero experience. But I was like, okay, what if I just try? What if I just try? And it seemed impossible. It seemed insurmountable. It seemed like, something that just wasn't going to be happening. I was told by people that were very knowledgeable on the subject that it would not happen under any circumstances. But, desperation causes a certain type of motivation. I moved from New York City to Houston, Texas. And one of my really good friends was at that point a waiter. He was making bank as a waiter. He was like, dude, just be a waiter. I'll get you a job. You're going to make all kinds of money. It's going to be great. And he was really, really doing well. He worked a couple of different waiting jobs. I think one was at an IHOP or something like that. And the other one was at a schmancy restaurant. And he said it's two totally different business models. IHOP, I just turn as many tables as possible and I make bank because of volume. And then these other places, they're long, drawn-out, luxurious meals, and I make huge tips. Either way, I'm making a living. I'm supporting my little family that I just started. It's great. It can be great for you, too. And he was. He was making money. So I was a waiter for exactly 2 weeks. I remember I had to buy special shoes. I had to learn the menu of, I believe it was Champ's Sports Bar inside and out. And I busted my ass because he made it sound like easy money. And for him, it was because he loved it. For me, not so much. I remember I got to the end of, I think a 14-hour shift. And I had about $30 in my pocket. I was like, clearly, I do not do this right. Nor am I enjoying it the way my friend is. So that whole idea I had of being on the radio, I should go after that a little bit harder because this is not going to pay rent at the end of the month. So I busted my hump. I had a friend who'd been on the radio and asked him what it would take. He's like, well, you need a demo. I was like, what needs to be on the demo? He told me what needed to be on the demo. And he helped me make what we call in the radio business an air check that made me sound like him, a guy that had been really successful in a bunch of different radio markets across the country. And then I had a friend of a friend who knew somebody that worked at a radio station. I just made a whole bunch of copies on compact disc because I thought, well, a CD is good. A CD is a physical thing. A CD will land on someone's desk and it'll cause someone to want to listen to it, as well as me emailing me the MP3 of it. So I burned up a bunch of CDs and I just gave them to everyone to give to someone who might know someone who might be able to get into the hands of the guy who eventually called me and said, hey, I'm the program director of 94.5 The Buzz. We have an opening for an overnight weekend guy. You want to come in for an interview? It was completely impossible according to so many people. I was starting from zero, from nothing, from no experience, from no idea. But what did I do? I realized that, well, I wasn't going to make it as a waiter. So I just busted my hump. doing all the things that I could possibly think of to get me one step closer to getting some kind of radio job, some sort of foot in the door, something, anything. I thought for a second that the reason I got a shot at this was because they used to play my old band on the radio, which they did. Turns out that had nothing to do with it. I went to BuzzFest. If you're in Houston, you remember this. BuzzFest is a festival that's been going on forever and ever. Somehow I got in. Somehow I tracked down the guy that had called me and said, hey, want to come in for an interview? I'm like, hey, I'm the guy. We're going to be doing an interview. Just wanted to say hello. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool. You don't want to do it now, do you? I was like, oh, gosh, no. We'll wait. We'll wait until next week. But, I kind of left no stone unturned. I'd also gone to South by Southwest in Austin, this massive music convention, one that I'd played a couple years before. Couldn't get a wristband, couldn't get in anywhere, couldn't get anything. But I had a couple demos in my hand, and I found some people that I kind of sort of know and friends of friends. And, well, I just kind of asked everyone I could, I want to be on the radio. How do I do that? Who do I have to talk to? What do I have to do? Do you know anyone? And I probably annoyed the crap out of some people. But you know what? It turned into that demo getting into the hands of the right person. It turned into that person calling me and saying, want to come in for an interview. And also, there was a radio station sort of remote that I'd been to a week before. And I met some of the people that I'd be working with there eventually. And, well, it went from this impossible, unwinnable situation where I was told in no way, shape, or form would I be able to do this into, hey, we need someone. Would you like one weekend overnight shift a week? I kind of weaseled my way up ever since then. Just hustling as hard as I could, treating it like a job, taking as much action as humanly possible because I felt like that was the only way forward in life. Most of the things in my life that I feel lucky to have had happen to me, whether they are friendships or job situations, most of the best things in my life seem impossible when I look at them. And yet, they all happened. They all came from consistently trying to do something, taking some action. Not necessarily knowing what I was doing, but taking some action. And figuring out what I was doing was the wrong thing along the way when it yielded no results. Like I said, what I'm trying to tell you is that no matter what it is you want in life, it's not going to come to you unless you get out and get after it. Or stay in and get after it. You, me, all of us. We have things that we want, things that we need. And to get those things, we got to make a move. We got to make moves every single day consistently until we start figuring out how we're getting closer to them. And eventually having them in our lives. These things that you want, these things that might be impossible, whether it's a dream job, whether it's being in the best shape of your life, whether it is being able to stay in your kid's life as a parent. These things all happen from us taking action, making effort, doing something. And so, Stephen, I can't tell you what it is that's going to allow you to keep your place in your children's lives. I genuinely have no idea about the legality of the situation, and it would be irresponsible of me to suggest that I did. But I do know it's possible. Any situation is a situation you can overcome. Any goal is a goal that you can achieve. And if you want to have a place in your children's lives, despite the fact that their mother, against a court order, is attempting to move them hundreds of miles away, you can keep that place in your children's lives. How? I do not know. But I do know it all starts with you taking action. Like I said, maybe making calls, maybe Googling things. I don't know. I do know this, though. The important thing is that you do something every single day. Now, for me, when it comes to anything, I write it all down. You and I have talked about the to-do list a couple times on this podcast, I believe in writing down the things that you want to do, things that you want to achieve, steps you want to take to get there, and crossing them off when you do them. Every single day, I write down a to-do list. And every single day, I don't necessarily get through it, but the things I do get through, I cross off that list. And the things I haven't gotten to, I add to the list for the next day. And it's amazing how writing something down in front of you and kind of holding yourself accountable to get them done helps things in your life move. Doesn't matter what it is. But if you have that list staring at you, if you made that list every single day, well, I think it's the same as the people that buy into the idea of manifestation and the secret and the vision board and all that sort of stuff. It's just what puts it at the front of your mind. So, Stephen, I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that what you want to be a part of your children's lives, to be their dad, that's admirable. That's important. That's something that you need to do for yourself and you need to do for them. And I know that it's possible, and I know that you can achieve this by taking action. There's going to be times where you feel like, what the hell are you talking about, AD? I'm banging my head against the wall, getting absolutely nowhere. Keep going. Keep going. If you keep going, it will happen. And I guess that applies to every last one of us. No matter what it is we're trying to get to, no matter what it is we're trying to achieve. Nobody gets exactly what they want in life. But if you keep going, things will happen. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spend together, it's the best part of my day every single day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a good one. Later.